Mashallah, mashallah. Chocolate chips. No, I wasn't offered any, so I'm not gonna beg you guys to get me some. But no. Do answer that questionnaire, please. Anyone? No names. Just do answer the questions. Don't be shy. It's okay. You haven't left Islam by answering the questions. Well, there are some scholars who would opine that you have, but we're sort of putting them into the... We're turning their voices down, muting them. I just want them piled up. I don't want to know who did it, I just want to know gender. Shall we start?
Yeah. Assalamu alaikum. Inshallah, now we'll get started with the Q&A session, so if everyone can please get in their seats, and we can start. Inshallah.
Wow, my phone. Okay, just Bismillah. So, Bismillah, alhamdulillah. I don't know how good that talk was, but it is what it is. That's all I'll say. If you have any questions, anything, do ask them. And those questionnaires, I really would like you to answer those questionnaires. I'm very curious to your answers. I am curious. So, any questions on anything that I mentioned tonight? That's good. We can go home then. Or M&M Grill if you're going there tonight. They have a burrito or taco. Yes.
Could you repeat the name of the first author you mentioned?
Naeem Atas. So you can go. You just Google him. He'll come up, and you actually download some of his. You can get PDFs of some of the books that he has in English on education. What's education, right, Corey?
Education Islam is one of them. He's got several books. Some on secularism, Islam.
Yeah, they're really interesting reads. I mean, it's like they're refreshingly interesting reads. I mean, personally, like when I first was into Islam, my first phase back at Purdue, I really liked the works of like who we just mentioned here. Who were we mentioning here? You're asking me about it. At Georgetown University.
Oh,
Sayyid Hussein Nasser. I really liked his writings. And then I read like, Friedrich Schwann and Guénon, which I really liked them, the traditionalists. And yet, when I read Sayyid Naeem Atas, I get this non-perennialist view of things, but something that I can see an equivalent writing when I read Christian theologians with deep writings, which I often get from contemporary Muslims. So I think that's why it's a worthwhile read for that. Some of the books I have, I brought some of my books just to share with you if you want to get books. This one by John Walbridge, this one called God and Logic in Islam, the Caliphate of Reason. You should probably get that book and read it. So it's called God and Logic in Islam, the Caliphate of Reason. Get that one. This is one you can order online, Islam and Biological Evolution. It's by David Solomon Jalagil. He's South African, but he was in Saudi Arabia. It's actually a decent book on, I think, on discussion of evolution in Islam. And it's one out there. So it might be a book you want to get. This one you may not find. This is some friends of mine when I first converted. These were family friends at Purdue. This is Sayyid Fried Ahmed and his son Sayyid, who was like this tall when I first converted. Now he's a homeopathic doctor in Dallas. He and his dad wrote this book. His older son went to Princeton, got his PhD from Princeton, and then he's now teaching at American University in Cairo. And it's called God, Islam, and the Skeptic Mind. This is actually a very good book, by the way. I don't think you're going to find. He gave me it when I went to his home in Dallas. I got out of his library. And a study on faith, religious diversity, ethics, and the problem of evil. It's someone you never heard of, but he is a very intelligent man. He's also taught at the Islamic University of Malaysia. He's taught around the world. He's in his 80s. Really good book, God, Islam, and the Skeptic Mind. Of course, Bhutti's book on Jihad and Islam. It's a good discussion on a contemporary mainstream Sunni scholar responding on issues of jihad. It's a good book. Yeah, good book. And then the last one I had brought with me tonight was Misquoting Muhammad by Jonathan Brown. His work on hadith sciences and issues of hadith. I recommend this book too, to read, inshallah. So it's Misquoting Muhammad, just like Bart Ehrman's Misquoting Jesus. It must be his mirror of that.
Do you mind if I write the names on the board?
You can if you want. You want to come up here? Right away. Then we'll all leave because by the time you get them written, we'll be leaving.
Well, let's see.
Right? I have to go to M&M because my son, I promised him hamburger.
Yeah.
Okay. So those are some books I have. Yes?
Christian philosophers.
Yeah, I was going to recommend a Christian Christian writer. I would recommend Alistair McGrath from Oxford, Richard Swinburne from Oxford, definitely. Polkinghorne, and Alvin. He's from Notre Dame. There's another series out, if you're interested in cosmology, larger issues of modern physics and cosmology and issues on the nature of God. There is a Catholic priest, is it Robert Spitzer, who's got a website, the Magis Center. They're really good stuff. I bought his books and they're really good. I mean, really fascinating stuff on evidences for God from an issue that deals with modern contemporary physics. Physicists really have no problem believing in God. It's the biologists who have a problem believing in God. Seems. Especially evolutionary biologists. They have a big problem with God. Physicists don't. Seems like. So I recommend them. If I had some Muslim authors to give you, I'd give them, but I don't, unfortunately, on those. Obviously, the Christian authors are committed Christians, and so you always have to sort of read them by, skipping over the Christ stuff and all that, and taking out what you can. That's what I do. Well, that Jihad and Islam is actually by Ramadan al-Bhutti. It's translated by Munzir Abdul. It's Ramadan al-Bhutti actually wrote it. He was one of the muftis of Syria who was killed a couple of years ago. Executed. He was blown up during a lesson in a masjid. It's on video. You can watch it. Unfortunately. Anything else? You guys no questions or anything? That's amazing. It's good, I guess. Inquiring minds don't want to know. Yes.
I had a question about whether anyone has asked you or whether you came across people who have a fundamental problem with Islam's morality system and how it's like Islam is incompatible with modern ethics.
For example?
For example, killing people who leave the religion or women's rights.
Bhutti, for example, in that Jihad has a whole section on apostasy and the rulings on apostasy, the theory behind it. You can read that. Or that is a problem people deal with. Ethics and morals, classically Muslim scholars did not write under the issues of ethics and morals as we think about it in more of a Aristotelian, Hellenistic view on the virtues. So but we talk about virtues. We're talking about classical virtues. Muslims deal with akhlaq, virtues. So that, I guess those are our ethics and morals. But when it comes to more issues that deal with, let's say, issues that deal with apostasy and rulings that deal with people who can be executed, those type of issues. From a legal, Muslim scholars don't really look at that really from an ethical perspective classically. It's more of a, when it comes to issues, it's something that's been deemed impermissible or an offense, and then therefore it has a resultant penalty to it. As I mentioned before in class, I think one time, the Islamic legal system traditionally is not a system that classically was about correcting the perpetrator. Like I say, I mean, of course, the American legal system is basically a racket and a business, basically. It's a corporatization of imprisonment, literally. But there's this idea that we're taught that you're there to correct the incarcerated and try to help them to amend their lives so they can become productive citizens. That was never really part of Islamic system when it came to penalties. The penalties in Islam really are what we would call there's this theory of deterrence. So harsh penalties to deter someone from doing it. So the person who can be convicted, they're partially punished, and that's to deter the rest of the community from doing the act. So there's not really an idea there to try to rectify the criminal per se, but in a sense to admonish and warn the community through a penalty applied to that person that you all better not do that. It's more like a theory like that. So in ethics and morals, that's one of a contemporary issue that Muslims are dealing with. And I think like, what's his name from University of Malaysia, who wrote on issues of freedom of expression in Islam?
Hashim Kamali.
Hashim Kamali, his works, he's got 4 or 5 books now that deal with issues of personal expression, freedom of religion, those issues in Islam, maybe even gender issues. You can go to Amazon and find those. Hashim Kamali, they might be good books to have in your library at home to read. I think they're really good books, so you can read them and you get more idea on those issues. But generally, classically, Muslims didn't really have that type of discussion as we would think of it today. Though we will be having it now because we're in a different context, and Muslims do. We get exposed to new worldviews and these ideas, like in our tradition with like Hellenistic thought, and Muslims can engage with it and then try to bring in the revelation, the prophetic way, into a dialogue. And so Muslims can borrow and take, and we've done that in our past, and we'll do it again, I suspect. Anything else? You all bored?
I got a question.
Yes.
As establishing Islamic roots in America, it can be quite challenging, even if you come to financial reasons. So I was wondering, like, let's say if you can share something with me. Like, for example, you mentioned you got your degree, then you went over to study abroad, and your parents were non-Muslim at that time, correct?
And they still are non-Muslim.
Okay, so I wanted to know, what can you teach us to overcome these objectives? There's solutions.
Like objections to that?
Or challenges. Like, there's so many challenges, Muslim to non-Muslim, and see, there's your tradition where you come from. If you're from, like, let's say Pakistan, and then there's your tradition of living here, Muslim to non-Muslim. It's just so a challenge. How do you overcome this challenge?
Well, I don't believe you can have an Islam divorced of a cultural context. Like, I don't believe there's a such thing as I'm simply a Muslim. I don't know how that, because Muhammad was not simply a prophet. He was a Qurayshite. He was Hashemite. He was Arab. He made clearly he was an Arab. Made clear he was Hashemite, for example. He classified his companions as, are they the people of Badr, for example? Were they Muhajirun? Were they Ansar? He gave people, he acknowledged people in different, ways of not just saying, you're just a Muslim, that's it. So I think it's sort of a facetious discussion. I think we are human beings, and we have our fundamental belief in God and Muhammad as his messenger, Quran as revelation, and we all can agree about those points. And then after that, we sort of break down. We don't agree on certain things after that. It's like Imam Shafi mentioned things like that. On the fundamentals we agree on, but when all the faru of the branches, we can have lots of disagreement. But that's okay. I don't have a problem with that. Contextualizing ourselves. I mean, I look at my own life, and I struggled when I first became Muslim. I rejected my Americanness. So now you see me now. I've got my turban on and my Qadi cloth outfit, you know, blah, 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 you know, and I'm 51 years old, and okay. But then I was 18 years old, and I rejected so many things that were part of what I grew up with. Because I felt from the Muslims I knew that that was what I was supposed to be doing. Because they were the kuffar, and they, you know, are not our friends, and you left them. Now you're in the Dar of Islam. And that was like a message I got when I was at Purdue, by the way. I'm not making this up. I'm not being theatrical. Really, it was like that. It was us versus them. That was the mentality I was. And so I kept, I, you know, wore a thobe and a shalwar khamis and and I made myself very distinct from them, from the kuffar. So I wasn't very like engaging. And when I went to Saudi Arabia, that was reinforced in Saudi Arabia for me. And then when I went to Turkey, in the community I was living in Turkey, that same message was reinforced, that you are distinct from them. They are the kuffar, the gaur, the Turks would say, the gaur, and you're distinct from them. It's only now that I've returned back to the United States that I don't have that mindset anymore. I'm this way because my wife makes my clothes for me. And you know, I'm this way because I have real deep reasons of the things I know what I'm doing. And those people know me, that I make my choices, and I made these choices for specific reasons, but not to be distinct per se. But one thing I found in my Islam is I'm very comfortable now with myself. I'm very comfortable. So I go where I want to go now, and I'm comfortable. Before I felt walled up in a way, but now I'm very comfortable with myself as a Muslim and the things I do. So I'm okay. But for us, as Americans, you are Americans and you're North Americans, you have to be asking yourself, I mean, this is my belief, this is what I hold, that I have a purpose to be here, and that purpose is that I've been gifted with this religion. It's a gift from Allah Azza wa Jal. It's just given, and I have to receive and I have to give back. That's what I believe. So maybe you need to find that in yourselves. I mean, I suppose at the end of the day, you'll be challenged by your parents. Let's say in the Indo-Pak community. You need to become professionally successful, which is a good thing because it keeps you from being in debt. It's not a very Islamic thing. Unless you're like a really big consumer, then you'll be in debt anyway. But I believe as Muslims in the United States, you are people of prophetic heritage, and you need to see yourself that way first and foremost. That you live here to walk with God in obedience, reflection, humility, and to bring these people that which is prophetic, which is an opportunity to know that God is real. Muhammad brought us true means to engage with the living God. The Quran is a true communication from that God, and it can be an active thing. But you cannot give that unless you have it, by the way. So if your Islam isn't like that, you can't offer that to anyone. You can't. And I don't always find Muslims who can offer that to someone. The Prophet ﷺ had mentioned in a Hasan hadith that there are people, when you see them, they remind you of God when you see them. God is remembered by means of these people. You should ask yourself, how can I be that person before I die? And live that. Because at the end of the day, if you're in the United States, this is what you want to offer these people. If Muslims talk about it's a way of life, Islam is a solution, you know, subhanAllah, you know, we've got answers. Well, prove you've got answers. Prove it. Yeah, of course, right now we're in a really rough road, and we're really under the spotlight, and we're really being slammed hard, and our Prophet has been soiled and belittled. But, you know, we were partly part of that problem, too, to make that happen. So, you know, it wasn't just them attacking us. We also are co-sharers in that, I think. So how are you? And then you'll figure out what you need to do in this here. But my advice to my students is I always tell them, live simply. And that's my message now. Live simply. If I think there's one thing that Muslims can show to Americans who are wasteful and frivolous, is they can show earnestness and simplicity of purpose. To live simple lives that are very directed towards the future. I struggle with that, but I believe that's something we can offer. So if that, maybe something that, that most of us are not geared to, because most of us in this room, of you, are children of immigrants, and your parents didn't come here to live simply. They came here to have some type of success, and economic success was part of it. And economic success in the American context means things to own. It means to have things. That's a sign of success. The car you drive, your house, where your house is it a gated community, a non-gated community, how many bedrooms does it have, etc., etc., etc. That will define your success. But that's not Islamic success. I don't believe. I actually believe the Prophet was other than that, my knowledge of him. So that's why I think that you have to find that in yourselves, and so you'll be at odds, because I'm at odds with people already about this issue. That's okay. But I think you have to find that to offer them something. And I believe that Muslims can offer something. We can offer alternative lifestyles for people of the good life. But we're having a struggle to find it. We struggle to find it. And I think part of that's because, in that period in Europe when Martin Luther was in that early period of Protestant Christianity, there was so much violence that these Christians were perpetrating on each other. So much violence in the first few decades. 1530s, 1540s, 1530s, and up to the 1600s. There was so much violence perpetrated by Christians that some of these Protestants, they did a 180-degree turn from being violent to being pietists and quietists. You think of, for example, the Amish. Well, the Amish are very quiet people generally. They're simple people generally. Quakers. But if you look at the history of the churches that they usually came from, they were extremely violent people initially. But through violence, they experienced so much early on that they rejected violence and took a path of pacifism and quietism. However good that is, they have simple lives, maybe good lives. But the point of that is that one thing we Muslims really lack a lot of is deep reflection, personal reflection. And you need to spend time in that. You need to be quiet, reflective people. Meditative people. Just as the great Muslims of the past were. To sit down and reflect. There's a reason why the Prophet ﷺ has basically, there is no, after you pray Salat al-Fajr until the sunrise and after Asr until sunset, those are special times to sit down and remember God, for example. That's the sunnah. Is to take time out. There are many adhkar for that period of time to sit down and reflect. It's a time of transition of angelic beings, for example. Well, take advantage of that. This will answer your question, but the answer to this question is that you have to find, you have a purpose here in this land. And if your purpose is to edify God, to magnify God, to make His reality manifest through you, through praise, love, submission, obedience, good conduct, virtue, good neighborliness, fulfilling of trust, etc. It says all the things that the Quran defines the believer as, then you have brought good to these people. And remember, they may not like it when that good comes, but that's okay. Let them ridicule you, let them mock you, let them spit on you, let them do these things, because they may and will do that. But Every time, when a believer is thrown a thorn, it only converts to a rose, sort of a Sufi kind of approach to things, It's okay. It's okay. Because every beating you take is just a removal of sin for you and a virtue for you in Yawm al-Qiyamah. So inshallah, I don't know how Islam's going to go in the United States. I'm getting old. I don't know where it's headed. But I see most Muslims as sort of like, really caught up in just their lives. They're caught up in their jobs, caught up in their wealth, caught up in their sort of weekend Islam. And for me personally, that wasn't the ticket I bought for this show. It was advertised in a different way, but I'm getting something else. But I'm not going to turn my ticket in, but might complain to the manager about it a little bit. Like I really believe this, whether despite what people may think about me in Houston, being divisive or problematic kind of person that they may think I am, I'm really not that way. I just really have great concerns about where this religion is going in this land. I really am. Because it's my choice to be a Muslim every day. And I only found beauty through Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And whenever I feel that beauty is being threatened, I become like a mother hen over her chicks. I ruffle my feathers and I make strange noises. Because something I love is being threatened. And I have a responsibility in my knowledge to defend this religion and your honor, because you're a noble people. And that's what I believe. So your parents will argue against you, and if you choose an Islamic way of life, you might have relatives that go against you, family. They'll say, "Oh, just keep your prayers and do things like that." Yeah, listen to them. Be compassionate. Listen to them, but try to understand where they're coming from. It's a different world they're coming from, a different set of values than you may have right now. Alhamdulillah. My son Umar here, who's quite bored right now, hoping he'll get to that M&M pretty soon, is he's probably saying, "Dad, why are you pointing me out?" He likes football. I don't care about football. Actually, I hate football. I never went to a football game in my life when I was in school. I went to one basketball game when I was in high school and I said, "This is a waste of time." But I go to his football games. And I sit and watch them because he's my son and I love him. I don't want him to have a spinal injury, so I go there. So I've learned to try to like football. Because he likes it. And I hope that he will like my religion that his dad's forcing on him because I like it. And we can meet that way. Because the fact is, I can't make him a Muslim. He'll choose that every day. Just as his dad chooses it every day. And so that's how it is. We learn he gives, I give. He takes and I take. We find some common ground. So don't just talk about this religion. Don't just talk. Don't just talk about this religion. Talk about God. Bring Allah back to Islam. You are muwahidun, people of Tawheed. You are witnesses of the God of Abraham. You are those people. You are sinful. You are forgetful. You are frustrated. You are all those things and more. But you are, despite that, it's like Sayyidina Ali said, Radhanhu, how wondrous it is that a person can be in a state and do what they do, and yet they have this Lord who's forgiving of them. Sort of a paraphrase of that. So don't worry about, you have lots of sin, don't worry about it. You were created for sin. There's a hadith on that. It's Sahih Muslim, right? Had you not committed sin, God would do away with you and bring forth the people that commit sin, and they would seek forgiveness, and He would forgive them. There you go. But it doesn't mean it's a license to sin. It means you are made to stumble. The trick is, will you learn to get up after you stumble and not despair? And inshallah you won't.
What
And-
is despair in simple words? Despair?
Despair.
You learn to get up and not despair. Could you?
Yeah, so for example, there are people in this room, you've all done things that you regret. Maybe in the past 24 hours. You don't feel good about yourself. That's a sign of Iman. Alhamdulillah. And woe to the man who rebels against Allah, but his heart has no feeling about it at all. That's a dead human being. That's a zombie amongst you. You've done things that maybe you regret. But but that regret, what is, a tawbah, nadamun, tawbah is regret. So that's okay. Just make a choice and move forward from it. So that's what I mean by that. It's not a license to rebel or sin or turn away from God. It's just to know that you may do that, but don't get so, it's okay, you can come back. Don't let anyone make you feel so down that you can't. Alhamdulillah.
Make Tawbah and move forward, you said?
Make Tawbah, move forward. That's what Tawbah is. Always moving forward. Always turn towards the Qibla. Metaphorically, literally.
Can I ask you a question on sabr?
Go ahead.
Sabr, I've heard many things about it, and I've thought to the point that it's not just a spiritual thing maybe. It only doesn't come from Islam, but it also has a human thing to do with it, like our body, and maybe where some of us could be hot-blooded or hot-headed. And then, I feel that Islam makes it easier for us to be patient, but there's also the human characteristics too. And I've heard from lectures that some people that can have sleepless nights, they have to be patient too.
Well, patience is, sabr is a steadfast consistency in your moments with God, whether it's an active obedience or avoiding something impermissible or a proper attitude towards something. That's what sabr is. It's knowing your moment and acting appropriately in that moment, consistently. This is what sabr is, in a larger definition of it. So if you're in a stressful situation, seek recourse in Allah.
What was it? Recourse?
Seek a means out of that situation towards Allah. Perhaps it's through dhikr. Perhaps it's through sitting down. Perhaps it's through walking away at that moment. When the person who's making you stressed out is on your back, that's when you walk out that door. That's sabr. It's everything. Sabr is consistency in every moment that you are, in knowing how that moment is modulating with you, how you should be with God in that moment. Like right now, I'm talking too much, so I need to be quiet, because overwitness is not a good virtuous quality. So we have to call it quits for tonight. So I have to be mindful of the moment. That'd be sabr for me.
And one last question.
Yes, Ahmed. But make it a short one. You're getting over my sabr.
In your closing remarks from the talk, your parting advice was to seek knowledge. You mentioned Arabic specifically, but does there exist, or is there a way that you could point out a minimum knowledge base that a person should have that they can pair with their college education if it's not already in the Islamic Studies department? So your physicist here in the room, or engineer, or doctor.
Everyone needs to know Arabic.
Okay.
You all must learn Arabic. Language of the Quran, language of the Hadith. That should not even be a debating point. Oh, I can't. It's just too hard. It is not hard. You want something hard? Learn German. Or learn Turkish. Arabic, it's not hard. You know, you got verbs, you got you got your af'al, you have your asma, you have your huruf. You got your particles, your nouns, your nominals, and your verbs. That's it. Put them together, ya Allah, you move on. Yeah, we get that poetry, and how the 13 uses of the harful ba. That's a different thing. But basically, you got it down. You're okay. I'm serious. You know that Medina University series on Islam, on Arabic, those 3 volumes? If you could read those and finish them, you have got a fundamental basis that you're really good to go for your salah, opening up the Quran with greater comfort. You need it. You are people. That was a mistake of the Turks, man. When they had an empire, they should have emphasized Arabic instead of not. Same thing with the Moguls, They emphasized Persian, not Arabic. It was a mistake. So, Arabic. And also, you need to understand fundamentals of your beliefs. I would recommend you read a good, Imam Tahawi's creedal epistle. It's of the period of the Salaf, and it's a surviving text, and it's straightforward. It gives the basics that you need to know, and it's not in all these polemical issues that we find today in our Muslim community about subtle points everyone is so stressed out on. You get the basic teachings of the early generations in a nice, compact manner. You need to understand how you practice your obligations, obviously your fara'id. Understand the issues of worship or personal obligations if you're married, for example, or you have a bank account. Those issues you have to take care of. You should know those things. And if you get them from a qualified person, take classes online who are qualified, etc., and take them from them. And consider, once you finish your bachelor's degree, do a master's in some area that may be something else before med school. Or take a year off and go someplace and study. Why not? Right, we took off how long before med school?
1 year.
He took off 1 year. So Rashad was here, right? Graduated from Rice, took off a year, studied some. Now he's doing his med school. Did you turn to a mushroom when you did that? A toad? No. No. Did the world collapse? No. No. We were assaulted by jinn or something like that? No. No. Didn't know. So why don't you do that? Why don't you do that? Nothing's stopping you, it's just that you don't want to do it. But you can do that. I think Corey here is offering an Arabic course, somewhere, right? So he's offering, there's an Arabic, is it an intensive? What is it?
Yeah, so it's an Arabic intensive. The flyers are here on the front table. If you're
He
interested.
came prepared.
It's a 10-week, yeah, I did. It's a 10-week intensive. You cover all the basics of Arabic, inshallah, and you have a good vocabulary, 500 words. We've modified the curriculum towards Muslim needs, so that the basic books that you'd study in a college course, so for example, if you took Arabic here or at U of H, you're going to use books that are catered towards politics mostly, and they won't delve as much into grammar and other areas which should be emphasized for Muslims. So we've kind of combined the best of both worlds, inshallah. If you're interested, you can talk to me afterwards. I don't want to take up all your time.
So, I mean, it's a program.
There's the flyers are there on the table. I'll be here, inshallah.
I just mentioned because he's doing that and it's his own initiative and it's something local, and why can't you take advantage of that? I mean, why not? Why not? Go learn beekeeping like I do. Keep bees, right? Right? Beekeeping. We got a problem with our hives. One colony's got a problem, by the way. They're dying. I don't know what they're doing on. We need to find out what that problem is. Yeah, beekeepers, man, have issues with bees that are dying. You know, it's a horrible thing because you can't get honey that way. Yeah, you know, learn these things. You know, open a community garden, do something fun. Anyway, I will call it quits for tonight. I appreciate your patience, mashallah, your sabr, your patience with me. Forgive me if this was not what you thought was advertised as. I do hope you will follow up, not necessarily with me, obviously, on some of the issues that need to be discussed in our community. I believe that these are things that need to be discussed. That's my nasiha to you. Please consider that as an MSA, please. I mean, you have these times where you get together. You should really be equipping people who go, if you are MSA for 4 years here on a normal 4-year course, that you, in that time spent, people are really coming out, getting something really, they come in with this little bit and they come out with that, ready to move on to either their grad school the business world, but they are really equipped to do something, to be motivated, and maybe many things. Because there are Muslims out there who need you. People are in pain, spiritually, psychologically, physically. You are elite people. You're an elite university in Texas even. It's not cheap to come here. This ni'mah has been given to you, so don't just walk away with your degree in your hand. But walk away as a transforming human being. Transforming human being. Then you really would have done something good. I believe that. I like to see that. So that's my advice to you all. Allah give you all khair, safety to your homes tonight, and make you successful in your secular studies. May He give you success in your spiritual pursuits. May He give you success in your fellowship, your brotherhood, your sisterhood. May you work together to have a successful Ramadan here, those who are here, and be people of change in this community, inshallah. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين والحمد لله رب العالمين آمين. جزاكم الله خير.
Really quickly, if I could just announce one more thing. Shaykh Naeem was too humble to mention it. For those of you who are interested in seriously studying after graduating or taking some time off to study, Shaykh Naeem does run an institute on the north side of Houston, maybe moving, it's more centrally located. And you can check it out at sunnahinstitute.com, no H, so SUNNA, institute.com, for those of you who are interested in studying full-time seriously. Thank you.
One more thing, we have some flyers. So this was the first lecture of a monthly lecture we plan to have this year. We have some flyers.
What are those? Let me